All right, let's do a little history lesson here. Back in 1963, that's when Walt Disney began searching the entire country looking for the perfect spot for his new theme park. 1963.
That's right. He bought up several acres in Central Florida, all under fake business names, so people wouldn't realize that there was one guy who was purchasing up all this land. And you can see those fake company names. They're actually right along Main Street here in Magic Kingdom. They're listed on the windows of the buildings with the names of real people, like, for instance, Walt's dad, Elias, and his brother, Roy O. Disney, who we all know very well, as well as other engineers, executives, and artists who were involved in making Disney World happen.
One of my favorite ones was a piece of land he bought up in North Florida, Empty Lot. Empty Lot was the name that he put on that one. That's a good one. But the jig was up in October of 1965. That's when an Orlando Sentinel reporter cracked the story. Walt Disney then held a news conference on November 15th to explain his plans.
Florida, we have something special we never enjoyed at Disneyland, a blessing of size. There's enough land here to hold all the ideas and plans we could possibly imagine.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool press conference, and the rest, as they say, is history. So what was Orlando like before Disney came here? We're going to find out. James Clark, he's the author of Orlando, Florida, A Brief History. He's a bit of a Disney historian as well. Not a bit, a good Disney historian. Good to see you, Jim. Thanks for coming in today.
John.
Now, let's talk about that one day. How did he pick this area in Orlando as opposed to everywhere else?
He had basically gone through a process of elimination. Looked at Niagara Falls, looked at Secaucus, New Jersey, looked at St. Louis as one of the possible places. And I know you're familiar with St. Louis, and it was going to be an indoor park in downtown St. Louis. He looked at South Florida, at Palm Beach County, and finally eliminated places and ended up settling on Florida. And it came down to Ocala and Orlando on the final day. He flew in here with his brother Roy, and they drove up to Ocala on the 21st of November, and then drove back to Tampa where they were staying. The next day, they flew over Orlando. And when Walt saw the intersection of I-4 and Turnpike, he pointed out the window and said, "That's it."
You know, it's funny, you see some of these images behind us here of them building Disney and just how swampy it really was. How close do you think it was to becoming Ocala being the happiest place on earth? Was it really that close?
I think it was that close. I think if Walt had seen how swampy it was, when they started sending people out there, they were surprised because they had to rent boats to get around on their property. I think if he had known how swampy it was, how expensive it was going to be to clean it up, he would have gone with Ocala.
Since we're talking history, and I want to end with this, I like looking back at history and saying this is the day that changed everything. Now, there's a lot wrapped up in that day that he flew over this plot of land. Explain that day to us again, how it's not only important for Orlando, but really for the nation.
It was the day John F. Kennedy was assassinated. And Walt was flying over Orlando about the same time Kennedy was in Dallas being shot. He didn't know it until his plane landed later in the afternoon in New Orleans on its way back to California. And a ground crew member came up and told him that Kennedy had been killed.
And that one day changed everything for Orlando, didn't it?
It really did. Not only Walt Disney selecting the site for this huge theme park. By the way, Walt hated the name theme park. But also, it put into the White House Lyndon Johnson. And people don't realize that Lyndon Johnson was a tremendous friend to Orlando. As a political payoff, he gave Orlando the naval base. So lots of things happened as a result of that one day.
Interesting looking back. Once again, Jim Clark, the book Orlando, Florida, A Brief History. Check it out. If you want to know more about our city, you got to start there. Jim, thanks, man.
Thanks.
Always good to see you.